I know. But they were confirmed. Where'd that come from?
What?
I can slip on here. Your packet, I got it on, I got the digital.
Mine was in my. Mine was in the office.
Yay. Sarah.
Oh. Yeah.
There's a pen right there, so it matches. Do the matching one. Don't mess this up. See, Larry's kind about it. There's a pen right there. I'm like, hey.
Well, what's funny, I have two pens that look identical and one is blue ink and one is black ink.
Not okay.
And so I'm always scribbling on stuff.
Uh-huh.
I had to slip on the Meredith to see if it was blue or black, yeah. So now he's black and blue. I didn't beat him up, it's shocker. Pens.
Yeah.
Just the pens. You what? Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, that's it. You're correct. Yeah. The official version came in, right?
Oh, I agree. I agree. Oh, I think you leave that. I just,
For our records, if we needed like the final.
Good thing that it's right.
You know.
I didn't vote for it.
actually, it's the microphone last time. Online, can hear all this. Oh, still.
1 minute, 1 minute till show time.
Very good at like recognizing famous people.
Hi.
So that's all I like.
Okay, you.
Okay.
Oh, it's great. But I'm always
You got record?
scribbling.
We ready? We're recording? All right. All right, I'll call to order this Pleasant View City Council regular meeting. It's Tuesday, December 10th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Welcome, everybody. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, opening prayer reading or expression of thought by Council Member Yuri.
Audience, please rise for the pledge. Read after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity to gather here together at City Hall as members of this great community of Pleasant View. We're grateful for this public and civic process as we discuss the affairs of the city. We ask thee to be with us, that all will be calm and collected and sincere in their deliberation with those who share their thoughts and with the council and mayor who act upon policies and procedures that are given to us for consideration. We are grateful for the opportunity to serve. We're grateful that we live in a place that we have freedom of expression and thought, and that we have the ability to share this openly and honestly. We're grateful for our great community of Pleasant View. Please bless those who serve tirelessly on our behalf, our Public Works Department, our Police Department, our city staff, and bless them that they will know how much we appreciate them and that they will have support and strength that they need to carry out their daily duties. We ask you to bless those who are leading our state and county and nation, that they will be wise and prudent in their decisions as well and safe from harm. We ask you to bless the military and overseas and at home, that they will be watched and protected as they serve and defend our freedoms. We're grateful, Father, for all that thou hast given us, and we ask that the Spirit will continue to be with us always. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Just to note that, Councilmember Gibson is stuck on the freeway, so he will join us as soon as he can. Item 1B is declaration of conflicts of interest. Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? Are there any conflicts to declare? See none. I'm gonna take, little prerogative here, and I'm gonna move item 3 up right now, recognition of Frank Mon. Let me read it on here. Recognizing Pleasant View resident Frank Mon, who was recently honored by Weber State University as the Community Veteran of the Year. Frank has been, I think you've been in Pleasant View about, what, 46 years. I've known Frank probably most of that time. Had the opportunity to work with Frank. Was at Weber County. He was a county commissioner mid-1990s.
81, 81.
Oh, 80? Okay. So, yeah, he's a county commissioner back then. So, and then he had his own business, Home Abstract, I believe, title company. But we're here to talk about his military service, which is an outstanding thing. I don't know a whole lot about it. I wish I knew so much more. He was recently honored, and that's what brought us here today, by Weber State University as the Community Veteran of the Year. And we wanted to just acknowledge that and thank him for the service he's done. If it's my understanding, I think he went to Vietnam in 66, 67. And he was thrown right into the midst of a big battle. That's what my understanding was. You were a tank commander. Frank could probably tell a story so much better than me, so.
I was assigned armored cavalry, element of the first infantry. But only for 360 days.
For only. But I think day 1 was like a major battle, wasn't it?
Day 3.
Day 3?
What battle?
To me, that's day 1.
I'm sorry.
What battle was it?
Well,
I don't know that it has a name.
yeah, it's just,
It's fairly well imprinted. Because it lasted about 9 hours. And I wound up the only commissioned officer on the battlefield. Other than that, it was a pretty nice day.
well, Frank has been honored many, many times, and not enough. I mean, he could be honored every day. And he's a Purple Heart recipient. He's just an amazing man. And we've been so lucky in Pleasant View to have him in our community. Everything I've been associated with Frank, whether it's church or work at the county or work at his Home Abstract, he's just been top-notch individual. So we just wanted to kind of acknowledge him, and I would like to present him with this, but I'd also like to give him a couple more minutes. Frank,
Yeah, I'm not sure it's my.
I don't know all of it. I know he's currently serving as Weber County Library representative. And, he's been on for the state, or just been involved with the veterans of the state, actually for the Christian.
get it home, another job.
And I know we have probably a hundred. Good microphone.
It's deeply humbling. My children would wonder that I ever used that word. But it's deeply humbling. The city would remember that I was here. I got something besides thoughtful. I didn't get typhoid. But it was a distinct honor for me to have been able to serve the United States in the capacity of an Army officer. I did stints in tanks, armored cavalry, taught officer candidate school, commanded a tank company, went to school, went back to Vietnam, learned how to spell psychological operations. The old joke is, I couldn't spell logical operations yesterday, and now I are one. I came home to teach ROTC at BYU for 3 years, and then spent 3 years in Europe before I got hurt and had transferred to the Army Reserve. But all in all, I spent 28 years in Army uniform. And I'm grateful that I could do that and be somebody who could lead people into battle and teach specific skills so the people who come after me were able to do likewise. Thank you all, council people, and all of you in the audience, and mostly Jim, who's claims to be my Uber driver for the night. Thank you so much.
Frank,
Thank you.
that would have been a nice day. All right, we'll move back up to public comments, questions for the mayor or city council, limited to 3 minutes. We have several council members that have to leave us, about 7, so we're gonna dedicate 10 minutes to public comments. If somebody wants to keep track, you don't have your fancy timer, that's okay. Anybody wish to address the council?
I think you do name,
Yeah.
we're not doing address though, right? We do name.
Want
resident,
address,
resident.
Larry?
Ryan Winslow. I can't think of a better way following Frank to address you face to face. Battle is one thing. But frankly, this is another type of battle. This is really good. It's a wonderful thing that we get to be in control of our own destiny. And at the local level in the city, we do get to be in control. We all received a petition from me simply asking to table something. And the request to table it is really not saying the proposal is wrong or incorrect or not a good one. It's simply trying to bring recognition to you guys that the way we got there wasn't the way we should get there. What my ask is, what 50+ people that we're able to talk to and get signed on to this is, let us be involved. Let us do our part in this relationship. That is where there's going to be fidelity in this relationship. Real quickly, I know you guys have all seen this proposal before. You've been heavily involved in it. We haven't. We believe that the citizens, the current citizens, the current residents of Pleasant View should be at the core of the decisions that you guys make on our behalf and how you represent us. I think you believe that too. So as you're listening to Amy and Tammy present again to you, the difference is going to be it now has planning commission recommendation. But I want you to look for, is this starting with a statement of the benefits that our citizens and residents want, X, Y, Z, can be addressed by doing this thing. If you can find that in there, if we can find that in there, we may be on the same page. But that's simply why I'm asking you guys to table it and give more consideration to those of us that are impacted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, talking about the same land. I'm Glenn Ames. I know you all on various levels. Been here since 2006. And you guys are a great team. Glad you're leading the city at this time. So, being a water engineer, got my degree in 1998 with Utah State University, specializing in water resources, water engineering. And since then, I've worked at UDOT. Part of that time was doing the drainage boxes and pipes and calculations and things like that. There's a report on this line that you're well aware of. And I don't know if the science has changed behind the report. It's hard to change the science and the data, but if that science is still accurate, then this land is still a water recharge zone, aquifer recharge zone. And developers tend to put up shingles, which run most of the water off, and then they put up roads and sidewalks and curb and gutter, and all this stuff is nefarious to groundwater because the water lands on it and then goes into boxes and into pipes, which end up in Willard Bay and Salt Lake, and not in the ground. And the last time we put up development around Park, that messed with the surface water and the groundwater as well. And I'm not interested in having more of our water run out to the Salt Lake, even though it needs to be refilled, but we'll pump it in from the Pacific Ocean. I want our water to go into the ground and be able to have groundwater. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks for explaining.
Sorry.
Paul Pitcher, AKA Pickleball Paul. My question has nothing to do with that. Fox Meadows down on 600, we would like to have lot 22 rezoned so that we can build a house there instead of CP1. The question is, has paragraph B, which was in question, been amended or is in process so that we can make the application?
Amy?
I'm happy to clarify that. So the council ultimately determined, and I think it was a denial with a recommendation that staff come back with another zone that would present to allow for small family, single lots. And so patio homes types things because of some of the challenges with the ordinance. And so that's going to be coming forward in January to our planning commission for consideration.
Okay, so I wait until then before I make the application.
Yeah, because there's
Yes.
nothing really to apply to. 'cause
I mean,
we
yeah,
haven't
yeah,
granted
you're
that,
welcome
so
to apply, but it's kind of in a pending status, in a holding
So-
status right now. Yeah, yeah,
Thank you,
you're
Paul.
welcome.
Yeah, the north of the road that goes in there.
You know, we started, you know, I had been here many times for this same proposition. That is to change the A5 zoning to something more of a density. And, you know, it's almost every 2 years, almost to the time that this comes up. And I had put my glasses on so I can read my writing. But I know that this is not a zone change. I know that. This is a wording change in the. But if you look at the wording plan, what are you wanting to do? You're wanting to make more density. And what does more density do? It invites a zoning change. So in reality, even though they're saying it's not, I'm not a teenager, I'm an adult, and I understand it is, in fact, an invitation for change. And, you know, I've had a lot of people talk to me recently, and I'm not saying this to be detrimental or anything to anybody, but you're losing the trust of the citizens because they think you've already made up your mind, you're already gonna do what you're gonna do, whether we like it or not. And I'm just saying, I've always enjoyed our citizens, and I've always felt like we were looking out for protecting our city and our assets. And that is an asset in the city, whether you look at it that way or not. Anyway, I guess you know that most of us do not want to have the wording, if that's what it takes, or the change from A5 to A2, or A20, or R15. And I guess that's what I have to say. Please do not invite higher density in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Anybody else? We have about time for one more.
Hey, I have heard that some citizens have been confused and they're thinking, it's RE20 or RE15, it's apartments, it's these other things going in. And we know it isn't. If I have heard anything like that, would be quick to correct it of what it actually is. There has been communication. But I would like to point out that part of that miscommunication is coming from the city and administration, and the responsibility too from the city to be communicating with citizens. And that's what happens when we are doing a general plan change, and why it would have been beneficial, and it would still be beneficial for us to have an update to the general plan, to invite all of the citizens to be part of this, to understand that growth is taking place. How does that growth take place? I think there are ways that the road could be put in that is very much needed.
and that with some creative thinking, it can be A5 and have a road. It doesn't need to be one or the other. I would invite all of you to maybe entertain the idea of let's wait, let's do a general update, let's address the entire hill. Let's do it with a sensitive land overlay. Let's do it with a master planned community. Let's thoughtfully move forward with citizen input. And I'm sensing frustration from citizens who feel that that has not been done to this point. So thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 2, the consent items, minutes of November 26, 2024. I'm gonna have to get my glasses out. And bills of Pleasant View City. Entertain, any changes to the minutes?
Any changes?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent items.
Motion by Marriott, second by Yuri. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 4, just a couple of things, clarification of what's been said here. I know it's frustrating. It's like, hey, this keeps coming up year after year or every 2 years or here's the problem. Every citizen has the right to petition their government for change. Just because we made a decision doesn't say, hey, you can no longer come in here and petition for change. As long as that hillside's gonna exist, undeveloped, somebody's gonna come in here and petition for change. So that's the first, that's why we keep going over and over and over this. It's their right. It's their right, and thank goodness it's their right. People like Frank Mon who fought bravely to protect those rights. So it's a very important thing, I think, to frustrating sometimes, but it's still their right. So second thing is, a citizen, a developer did not come forward for this change. The master plan is at odds. You said we need to follow the master plan. That's what we're trying to sort out here. The master plan calls for a road up through there. The city engineer, the city planner, the engineer and the public works director informed us that, yeah, we need that road as well as the fire marshal. So we as the city, how can we get that road? So that's where we're gonna go, and Amy's gonna present, but just so you know, I've seen the developer being vilified. You know, he came in with an A5 proposal without the road. It's at odds with the general plan. And that's what we're trying to through is, and that's for these people that represent 11,000 plus people to decide what is the most important thing for this community, a road or the A5? They get to vote, I don't. But that's the reality of it. It's like, hey, we're kind of at odds here. What's the most important? And the staff, which as administration I support and brought this forward. Amy's going to kind of explain some of that. So please do not, the developer is, or the proposed developer is one of the most honest, nice people I know. He's just a great guy. I don't know him that well, but everything I've dealt with him in the community, not just this issue, but everything I've been able to deal with him, he's just a fantastic gentleman. So please don't vilify him. It's not fair to him. And I told him day one when we started this that I would make that point known when it got to the council. All right, Amy
Okay.
and Tammy, I don't know who's gonna present.
I'll be leading. If Tammy has any additional comments, you're welcome to.
So Amy is our city administrator, Tammy's our planner.
Okay, so before you this evening is a general plan amendment, a proposal for 540 West, 4300 North. Just with regard to the background, and a lot of this reiterates what the mayor just spoke to. The property owner, brought in a concept plan for 5-acre lots. The road master plan was not addressing this concept, and so there was a little bit of conflict because there was a half of a road that extended up. And, in evaluating this with our legal, the first thing we'd say to the developers would like to see the entirety of the road installed. They said they felt that that was too much of an ask with the amount of homes that would be placed there. In evaluating with our legal, it does not meet the Supreme Court standard. It's called the Nolan-Dolan standard. It's based on 2 different Supreme Court cases, but that an exaction must be compared against the impact created by the development and if there's an increased need for public services caused by this. And so it's got to match the impact of the development with the required public improvements. And so, one option that was presented in discussing with legal would be to modify the density to allow for the road exaction to occur. And from what we understand, the developer is prepared to begin developing this property. And again, with that, there's general plan inconsistency with the density and the road plan being required. And so staff would like to see, from an administrative standpoint, an amendment of sorts. There's not a firm recommendation what that amendment is, but either, a way to get the road as was referenced, or to eliminate the road if the options are not available to secure that. So just, and some of the comments kind of brought up to this, and it's absolutely right. General plan does lead to zoning, but this is just kind of a reminder that there are various stages in the planning process, and we are in the general plan and looking at kind of that broader scope, but it's absolutely correct that in looking at that, that does lead to the zoning where it gets more specified and actually talks to specific legal allowances and uses, and it is legally binding, and then to the subdivision level where some of the different more specific things are evaluated with regards to building, and a plat map is recorded, and it really becomes kind of a legal definition of a development. So with regard to the road master plan, it is an important tool that the city uses as part of the general plan. It provides a coordination of transportation systems, looks to our future land use planning as part of that, and where we need areas of connectivity. Fire accesses and enhanced safety are components of that as well. For both existing and future developments, it's important to have a master road plan, and then consideration of traffic flows to help avoid bottlenecks, congestion, other things, and then it's kind of this cohesive design. But one of the important factors of our master road plan is also serving as a utility corridor. And so a lot of our roads have utility lines that run underneath. And so that's part of what we install there. So the proposal before you is a general plan amendment to 30.6 acres of land at approximately 540 west, 4300 north, from the density classification rural residential 5, which would allow for 0 to 1 units per 5 acres of land. The general plan doesn't speak specifically to zoning districts, and the reason being is zoning districts can change, and the general plan is more speaking to density. And so that's what those designations are. To rural residential 2, which would be 0 to 1 units per 2 acres of land. Currently, we do have one zone that rural residential 5, and that's A5, and one zone that would reflect rural residential 2, and that's A2, but that isn't to say that the city couldn't create another zone to reflect those in the future. So that's part of why it's a density-specific classification. And just as a note as well, environmental impacts are evaluated at the subdivision level. And so kind of back to that graph, the question is really more of is this type of density appropriate or good in this area? And even if the general plan dictates a certain density, that doesn't guarantee that. It could actually, the number of lots could be reduced based on environmental circumstances. So, I mean, it gives a broad, this is the best type of density in the area, but it could, again, still be reduced based on those things. Planning Commission had a very extensive review of this. There was a Planning Commission meeting that was held on November the 7th. A public hearing was held, and 2 public comments were received at that meeting. There were questions raised by our planning commission whether proper noticing had occurred because we'd had such a great interest in this swath of land prior. We were able to verify that all noticing requirements were met. This is a little bit tricky because when it comes to a general plan amendment, it's a little bit less specific to properties with the way that the noticing is required, and we follow the noticing in the state law. And so we followed the noticing to a T, but it does kind of change that from a rezone, and I think in the past, rezones were what were requested, and so that's probably where there's a little bit of friction or frustration with the noticing, but that's just a difference in kind of where we're at in the process. And then the planning commission at that first meeting did table the item and determined it wanted to complete review of the city's adopted sensitive lands plan prior to making a recommendation on this item. And as part of that timeframe as well, a lot of public comments came in and were received. Actually around November 21st meeting. So they'd open and close the public hearing. The November 21st meeting was scheduled and it allowed the planning commission to have discussions about the sensitive lands plans. There was some kind of inconclusive discussion. Some felt that it was more applicable and more specific to the specific area in question, and others felt that it was more broad. And so that was a little bit of the discussion, but ultimately the planning commission approved a recommendation of approval to the city council with a 5-2 vote. The planning commissioners who dissented, Farr and Cotter, stated some concerns that I'd like to describe, but just relative to the sensitive lands plan, they felt that there were environmental concerns specific to the property, discussion of water recharge, and also just in general the impacts of development down on other nearby developments, and then also discussion needing additional public feedback and a full general plan update prior to making this determination. And so with that, I mean, that's just kind of the nutshell of what's for you. I think there's some options to discuss, to deliberate, to consider. But again, I think part of the challenge is we did receive a project and recommendation, and it's not to say that you can't table, you absolutely can, but there are some rights that development groups can move forward with at this time with being landowners. So just something to keep in your mind. But the first option being to look at a reduction of density in the general plan to rural residential 2-acre lot average for a road to be installed as a legal exaction. Another option is option 2, the city funding the roadway. We did get an estimate from our engineering group of 1.4 million, and the land acquisition costs to install the road and retain current density. So that includes land and also improvement costs. Option 3 would be eliminating the planned roadway from the general plan. And option 4, if there's any other undefined options that you wish to consider or pursue. I would let you know too that there were a couple of other options brought forward with the planning commission that we vetted with our GRC group. One was betterment agreements, and the other was kind of a payback agreement type of thing, and neither really would work or function with it. And it's because of the surrounding density and the surrounding development of the densities. And so there's really not an opportunity to have other surrounding developments help for the construction of the road with the existing densities. And so it raises the exact same question we're matched with right now.
Thank you, Amy. Just like to add something. I've had several people ask me, well, why did we bring this? Why did we start this process? And, you know, the reason it's really interesting because we had this discussion. This is how the discussion went. We need this road. Okay. We talked about, you know, if you go back to the slide, but you don't have to, but if you paid attention to the slide that said the general plan is a non-binding document. In other words, it's a guideline. It's something to see, you know, but both of these things were in that general plan. So we could have just gone right to the next step, skipped this whole thing and went to the zoning, but felt it was important to go through the process that we've gone through, okay, to hear options, concerns, so on and so forth, because they are at odds. The city being the administration feels we need that road. And the only way we can legally do it without just putting it in ourselves is to increase the density. Not greatly, but still increase the density. So, go back to the option one. We decided not to just skip the process. We wanted to follow the process. People ask why we wouldn't have public hearing here at the council, because that's not the process. Yeah, and it's like, well, yeah, if we want to follow the process that we felt like we needed to follow, and so that's what we did. Here's some options. The council can just decide, hey, the road's not that important. If, we as administration, through the recommendations of our engineer, public works director, and fire marshal, have taken it to them and said, hey, they feel that this is an important thing. And so that's why it's gone through the process. That's why it's here. Don't mean it can't be eliminated. It also can be kicked down the road, but everybody just needs to understand that kicking down the road means sooner or later, everybody's gonna have to pay for it, not the developer. Again, we represent over 11,000 people, not just the surrounding neighbors. So I as soon as I finish with my presentation. And the other is, we went with the concept that, hey, we think that we can have the developer put this road in. So we took it through the legal process and was told, no, this does not meet that Supreme Court test. It doesn't. So it's like, well, then what can we do? I think we can build the road, or you can allow them to change the density. And it's like, well, what density do we have to do? That will be a real deciding factor. And it was just to the next density, A2 would meet the test. And so that's where we're at. There's nothing nefarious or anything tricky here. It's just, it's at odds. The staff told administration, we really need that road, which is on the master plan. That's the general plan. And it's also, so it's like we got these competing things. These people have been elected to make those decisions. So I will now turn it over to you. Sarah, I believe you were first, but wanted to comment.
No, just with that one comment, when we could kick the can down the road, my understanding, we're talking actually with the state ombudsman at the time of application, when they want to develop the property, the city actually has to finish the road. We can't kick it. And so that's what they told us on the phone when the application comes in. So even if we wanted to delay, we can't. So either
When they're ready to develop.
when they're ready,
Yeah,
to
we're
develop, we
ready.
have to pay our portion. And if we want that road, we have to pay ante up and pay for the rest of it. So we can't even wait to pay to build it. That was just my one comment there, and I'll comment later after.
Anybody else want to take a stab at a comment?
I'll start us
Okay.
off.
Okay.
So the comment was made that we've addressed this multiple times. This is the second time since I've been on the council in 4 years, a little over 4 years, and it happened just before that. And so I think we have addressed it often and pretty thoroughly. I'll tell you my opinion. I guess I want to say that I'm, at this point right now, I'm in favor of making this zone or amendment change to the general plan. And I just wanted to explain why I feel that way, just so you know. But I think in my mind, I think it really should be probably an RE20 zone. And I voted against that for the last 2 times, or the last times that I voted, but because we already have a precedence, we already have RE20 right next to this property and multiple pieces of property, and probably a majority of you that are here tonight are in an RE20 zone. And I was against that completely because we don't have the infrastructure to make that happen. The roads are not in place to allow that kind of density. And the water is there. We have water, but in order to make that happen, we have to spend some money to get Bonavista water for the lower portions of the city. So you know, I thought, hey, I'm against that. So, but that being said, the property owner has some rights. And if you own that property, you would probably want to do some things with that property as well. Farming's not really conducive in that area and in this whole county for that matter. Most farm property is under evaluation right now for that. That being said, it being a recharge area, you know, we've talked about this study and that is a concern to me, but from an engineering standpoint, from a logic standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me because it's below all of our wells, except for the little mole, which is nearly a mile west, a different drainage. It probably does help recharge the water in our area but that could be done. It's not, an A5 is not going to change that, and an A2 will likely not change it. I know Glenn mentioned earlier that, you know, roads and things put water back down into the pipes and go, but we can require, or we can retain that water in the area. I think that's doable. We can still put detention and retention ponds and still hold back a majority of that water, so it can still be a recharge area. I think it's in the best interests of the city because of this for infrastructure. We're talking about the road and pipes put in here. It will make the city flow better. It will help with the master plan. And we're also talking about a total of 10 houses. So on an A5, well, in it currently right now, an A5 property, there can be six properties on 30, right?
Setbacks and roads.
Minus roads, 5 or 6 properties on an A5 zone. On an A2 zone, you may 15, maybe 16 properties. We're talking a difference of 10 homes in that area. Will that impact our infrastructure? Likely not. Will it make our roads busier? I don't think it's, I don't.
6 cars a day, I agree, would drive up and down a road. A difference of 6 to 10 cars.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do have plans in place to continue going forward with our Skyline Drive. We do continue to have plans to work with the water, right? And a majority of those landowners that are above 4,300 are all at some point going to want to develop their property. And we as a city, it's going to make sense for it to be a higher density. It's just going to be that way. I don't think it's unreasonable. If all of us really wanted to keep it as a 30-acre piece and have wildlife and water on it, we should buy it. And really the city, if the recharge area really makes sense for the city, for the benefit of the whole city, we as a city should turn around and buy that property. We should own that property and we should use it for what its intent is, to be a recharge area. Well, I don't think there's a person in this room or anybody in this city that wants to get a 25% increase in their taxes to pay for it over 30 years. I don't think that's what we want to do. I don't think it makes sense for the city to do that. I probably have more stuff to say, but I think you guys all want to have comments.
Anybody else?
Just a couple
Bill?
things. So the main comments I receive generally related to the sensitive land study, which is usually what people cite. And then also just the infrastructure concerns. So the first thing that, you know, I would point, I see 3 options. And I've had some great conversations with people last couple of days. The way I see it is, first, you could keep it A5, which is supposed to be our agricultural zone. So when you hear agricultural zone, would you assume they can do agricultural things on their property? Well, they can't, right? That property owner today, if they put a single chicken on that property, would violate our A5 zone ordinance. Those of you that live in RE20, which I think is everybody in this room, I live in RE20, that's a half-acre lot in the same recharge alluvial fan zone that this property is. And I think pretty much everybody but Paul does as well. In that RE20 zone, I can have a commercial turkey farm if I own 5 acres today. That's agricultural stuff. This A5 zone can't. It can only be incidental
to residential use and consumption. So they could have a turkey that they're gonna kill and eat themselves. But they can't even have that on that property today because there's no residents on the property, so it can't be incidental to residential use if there's no residences on the property. So we've created a zone, this A5 zone, that obviously the neighbors love because it's an empty field zone. And I would love an empty field zone behind my house as well, but it doesn't allow the property owner virtually any rights. They can cut alfalfa 2, maybe 3 times a year if they're lucky, and they can't do virtually anything else with the property. You say, well, they can develop 5-acre lots. Yeah, if they can economically do it. And there's a reason that 5-acre lots are not being developed. I know what those cost. I do land use law. I've done plenty of development projects across Utah County and Salt Lake and these places. There's a reason they're not doing it up there because they'd sell them for 2.5 million each to justify the expense of the infrastructure. And nobody's buying $2.5 million lots to put their house on. So there's problems that exist with it. So when I think, okay, what's a compromise? Well, I think compromise A is you make it a real agricultural zone. And agricultural zones smell, sound, and look like turkey farms and domesticated elk ranches, just like we've got in Willard. And so I think Marriott would love to put his elk there, and I don't think anybody in the neighborhood would want his elk up there, but that's what an agricultural zone is, right? Second, you make it A2, and you cluster some homes. Yes, is the developer would want to cluster homes. And so you cluster some homes, and it keeps all of the surrounding area, it still borders everybody's properties empty. All of the land, the water can still take in the recharge of the water. But third is we just have to call that zone what it is. And I think we call it an empty field zone, and we admit what it really is and that they can't do anything in that zone. And otherwise I think it's immoral what we're doing. I think we've created a zone that limits the landowner, and I've got to hand it to the landowner. So I can tell you what I would do. I would put a dirt bike track in that land. I would invite all the neighborhood kids to ride motorcycles on it. And instead, it seems to me that the landowner's been pretty respectful and brought these proposals that I think are pretty reasonable in my view. And the last thing I want to say is regarding the sensitive land study. I'm glad Glenn's here because I'm not a hydrologist and I know nothing about this. But what I do know is I spend about 3 hours today. I called the University of Utah. I talked to their geology department. The sensitive land study that we have that was in 2016 is based entirely off of a 1978 study that was conducted in North Ogden. That 1978 study, so just to be clear, my understanding, and I don't think I'm wrong about this, is a single person did not dig a single hole in that property to determine any of the water flows, any of the alluvial fans. It's based off of a 1978 study that was also, as far as the University of Utah was able to tell me, done completely remotely. So since 1978 until today, I'm not aware of a public study that has been conducted where anybody's dug a hole in the ground. So we're basing it off of what we think, but I get comments, I've got a lot of emails saying, well, they identified springs there that are essential to our water infrastructure. I just don't see that anywhere in the study. So I think that we're grasping to a study for what we hope that it would say, but not what it actually says. And I would very much, I've spent a whole day reading it today. I would very much invite anybody after the meeting if you want to talk about specifics of the study, because again, that's not my forte. What I do know when the developer comes and what the study calls for is they're supposed to do site-specific studies as part of the development. That's what the study says to do. Well, the only way we can do site-specific studies, unless one of y'all are going to sponsor it, is the developer will do that as part of their development proposal. So that's why I'm in favor of the
They'll
A2
actually
zone.
be required to.
Yeah, they're required to.
I'm ready.
Okay, Sarah.
So, some of the things that Phil touched on that we actually talked about last time this came up is just for reference sake, the reason why there is RA20 up there to the east is because that was allowed to be developed before the plan was adopted. The sensitive land study was adopted in 2016. And then the A2 happened in the early 2000s on the west of it, when actually the same person who owns the property petitioned the city council at the time to ask for a rezone just for that little section. And the conversation, they actually talked about the sensitive area without the plan there at the time, but Phil's absolutely right. Nobody's actually done any in-depth studies of the hillside. We do know it's precarious. We absolutely know it's precarious. There are situations that are on the hillside that we absolutely have to be careful of and protect, absolutely. And we also know that one of the biggest costs in our city is infrastructure. And even though we have a really good budget and we've done really well,
we have a good budget, but we don't have any money to take care of the, I mean, things that we really need to take care of. And so we rely heavily on partnering with the developers when they come in to put that infrastructure in for everybody to benefit from. But something that, Ann and I have been working on with city staff for over the last year and actually longer than that with our city engineer and with specialists from all over the state of talking about the flora and the fauna and the wildlife and the water and everything, a state hydrologist, all of that, to put the sensitive lands overlay for the entire hillside. But right now it is in place. It's part of our master and our general plan. They are required to protect the city. Can't just come in and plop a house down. They will come in with their plan, their concept, and then that will trigger the next conversation where they will have to do so much in order to protect the rest of the city. They're required. They won't be able to develop without it. And A2 still falls within the rural low density. And and still protecting, you know, the open space. The open space will be dedicated to the city. That's my best guess. But they won't be able to develop on it. We'll have conservation easements and things like that. So the open space will stay open. And I do feel, I've had a few conversations with Ryan Wintle about the process. The state did change the process. We could have another public hearing if we so desired, but it's not required anymore. And the public hearing is only at the planning commission level. And so but there's been a lot of opportunities, a lot. And zoning changes with what Amy has said really do trigger a lot more invitation than general plan amendments do. But I also do agree that we do need a general plan update. We really do. But in this particular situation with this particular property, I do think that A2 would be appropriate there. Those are just my thoughts.
Sure. And
My comments will be short. I don't want to repeat anything that anybody said. Want to thank the public for coming and also for your comments. Appreciate the emails that we received and the time that's gone into that. We do really look at that closely and we appreciate your input so much. I mean, we're here representing you and the city, and that's important to us. So thank you for that. Last time this came to us, they were asking for a zone change and they were asking for like half-acre lots. I voted no for that. I live downstream and I was worried about the water recharge and all those things. And so that was something that I took into consideration that like weighed heavily on my mind. But as I look at this plan to do this master plan change, the thing that I'm not smart enough to know the water recharge rules and how it all works and stuff. So when I look at that thing that Amy put up with master plan, zone, and then subdivision, when someone comes, if we say general plan, it makes sense to do 5 acres, 2 acres, whatever it is. By the time it comes down to the subdivision level, then that's when we bring in someone who knows really what they're talking about, because we don't know that stuff. That's not our, like what Phil said, that's not our forte. So anyway, I think the road is important. I don't want the citizens to pay for that road when we have an option that I think is very viable. And if there is a problem with the study, the sensitive land study, then that's gonna surface in the subdivision level.
Yeah.
So, all those thoughts, I'm in support of moving this to the general plan amendment. So those are my thoughts.
And just to kind of a couple of things of clarification, we're rezoning this property. If the council decides to move forward with this, the developer could still come in and say, yeah, it just doesn't pencil. I want to do the A5 option and do the 5-acre lots and not build the road. And then if we want the road, we'd still be on the hook for it.
Can we put
But-
that in the language like A5 or A2?
Well, it's currently zoned.
A5 would still be permissible
Because
because
that's
right
the
now
current
that's the
zoning.
current zone. So there's
Different.
there's
Yeah.
vesting rights that occur at each kind of level except for general plan.
This area.
Well,
would
you
be
could,
appropriate
but
for A5
yeah,
or-
since it's already zoned A5, it's
Yeah.
kind of a,
Sorry.
but anyway, so he could, and I mean, there's no guarantee that this will get the road. And if it doesn't pencil for him when he actually starts spending a lot of money to try to you know, he's got slope and wetlands and other things up there he's gonna have to worry about. It might not pencil and you might want to go back. And again, it might pencil with, you know, part of it or, you know, so there's still a lot of unknowns, and that's again why we went through the process. Sarah made a comment, and I want to address that, and that's that we could have held another public meeting. And yes, we could, but the problem is, I don't want to start treating projects differently. Okay, because once you do that, then you do get yourself in trouble. It's like, well, wait a minute, you did this for that project, but you didn't do it for that project. So we try to, I try to keep things consistent, and state law helps us do that. But they don't say we can't do it, but if you're gonna do it for one, you probably have to do it for every single project
Yeah.
that comes through. Anyway, any further comments, Steve?
Just one thing quick, and not specific to this part, but I get people all the time that say, I want a recreation complex in Pleasant View. Wouldn't that be fun? $30-40 million later, that'd be great. We want Skyline Drive in the city. You know, before, Butters stole, Staker Parsons bought that, we had a huge truck problem coming down 500. They eliminated that, so the Skyline Drive was put a little bit on the back road. We were scrambling to see where we can get some federal funds or something to do that. That is going to be put in by a developer. And it's gonna, we've got the line for that to go, the path for the road, and that's gonna be part of our plan. And the developers are gonna have to put that in. Is that, what was that, $30 million?
Yes.
Something like that?
6 years ago, it was 30 million.
$30 million. So those things are there, and we've read every email that's come through. I haven't answered them all, but there is a little bit of that has to happen, and it hurts to have some change in the city. And I don't want to say we're on the side of the developers necessarily, but they are part of how the infrastructure and things go in. You know, we have water, we're trying to work on a reservoir for the lower, the one. We're gonna have to bond for that because we just don't have the money to do that. But that's part of what the government, what the city does, us, is to do those things that the rest of the residents can't do on their own. And so it is a tough thing. And I agree with everything that's been said, so I don't want to go into that specifically, but those developers do play a part in that. They have to. We can't do it. We've got $12-13 million of failed roads right now. You know, we tried to hold the tax rate, and boy, this room was full. They didn't want to pay $20 a year more. So we backed off of that, but I don't know what to do. I really truly don't know. The needs are there. Those 2-acre lots or whatever it's going to be are going to pay $1.4 million for a road that's part of our plan. Skyline Drive's a $30 million, you know, that, who knows when that's going to go through. Might be 60 million by the time they do, but that is going to be put in by the developers, and those people that buy those lots are going to pay impact fees to put that road in that we will all benefit from. Maybe when I'm dead, I don't know, maybe my grandkids will do that, but that's a long way away. But it's a tough thing, and I hope everybody understands that. Just like, I mean, we get this all the time. I want a recreational facility. Wow, it'll be wonderful. Phil?
Yeah.
Put it in.
So
You
can
know?
I ask one question? So the 1.4 million is the estimate on the road. Is part of this with the trunk line, the water line move as well, or is that?
No, those would be
separate?
separate funds, so that would be, kind of within the water fund and improvements with that. No, this is to acquire the property that we'd need, from the developer and then also to install.
Is that for
And
the entire road or just?
it,
the
it,
portion
it
that we
has a
do?
portion, taken
our
out of that, yeah, just our portion for a development that would be an A5.
So then the portion, obviously that would be the portion that okay, I see what you're
That's
saying.
just what's.
Yeah, this is the
Okay.
city's
Same.
remaining portion if the developer were to develop with A5.
No.
Part
Ex-
for-
Yeah.
and-
No, I'm okay. I was just gonna say, so I think Steve said it very well, but that's the concern is that if we were to say, we got a petition from 44 people that don't want this, and I understand it, and they were my friends, I hope that some of them are still my friend. But I understand that, but if we were to say instead, we're gonna do a $2 property tax increase per resident, we would have 300 people in here saying that they don't want that. And I know you wouldn't say that, but that's what would happen. When we talk about new garbage cans, the room fills up.
Are we
because
gonna
people
do
don't
it
wanna
for
buy new
every
garbage.
single development?
And that's what I'm
It's
saying.
not just this development. I mean, Steve's not wrong. You guys.
Most of the time I am.
Well,
Okay, before I call for a motion, I just want to address one other thing, and that is redoing the general plan. And Julie's been asking us to redo the general plan. That was something I wanted to do, and I've already informed the council, we're gonna be working on that next year. I am scared to death as an old-time resident, because I'm an old-time resident, I'm an old-timer. I'm worried that the new younger generation, which there's a lot in this city, aren't gonna think the same as we. So when it comes time to redo the general plan, we might have as many people come in and say, no, we need to change the density on the hill as opposed to keep the density on the hill. I know that, and maybe not this time. And hopefully I don't live long enough to see that happen, but my point is, I'm always like a little leery of, be careful what we ask for, because we might actually get it. So, yeah, sooner or later, the younger generation is gonna see and not cave, that's probably not the best word to use, but nothing else comes to mind, so to the pressure that is being put on to have more housing. And they're gonna see the ground up there and yeah, who knows? They have the rights to, and if we got more people that want that than don't want it, I don't think that will happen next year. I really don't. But it might someday, so.
well, I agree with you and I'm not I don't agree with half-acre lots at all. I think A2 is a good compromise as far as still allowing open space, very low density, it's 15 homes. More, so it's 10 more than what they were going to have, and that's not even that they could have 15 homes. They would have to meet all the conditions.
Yeah.
to Get the 15.
Ready?
Yep.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt the general plan amendment ordinance 2024-25 from rural residential 5 to rural residential 2.
Second?
Okay, motion by Arrington, second by Nelson. This will be a roll call vote. Arrington,
Yes.
Gibson. Yes. Marriott.
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Yuri.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item 6 is a close, item 5 has been, I'm gonna strike that from the agenda because it's not ready. Yeah. Item 6 will be a closed meeting. This is to consider, consideration of closed meeting to discuss the.
There's
char-
two different,
two closed
yeah, we've got a
One-
character
one-
competence and then also property acquisition.
So you just need to make a motion to go into a closed meeting?
Yes,
Okay, I'll make a motion to go into a closed meeting to discuss
character.
character conflicts.
We can start with that one and
Second.
then
Okay, yeah,
we'll need to pull our,
Thanks, everybody.
all right.
yeah.
That'll be a roll call vote.
Yes.
Bill, and,
Yes.
Oh, who
Sarah?
seconded? Sorry.
oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Yes.
Dave? Steve? Yes. Okay. We probably want to adjourn real quick into that room there.
We can't speak.
Needs to be.
We'll go in and
I think we'll do-
Johnny, thank you for coming, grab them on the way. if you'd like.
You
have the
tar
and Yeah.
feathers from the league or what?
We can do,
See you, John.
council.
Thanks, Johnny.
We'll invite Amy and Stetson.
And then we'll
Back a little bit.
Yeah.